The Canon EOS R5C is an incredible, amazing camera and camcorder, as a matter of fact. And it's hard to summarize exactly why I feel this way about it, but I definitely want to show you what this means to me, technically, and, you know, to me specifically, in feelings. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Eric Redux, and from cameras like this to camcorders like this, I want to show you why this camera means so much to me. Let's get started. But first, let's move somewhere a little more compressible. Okay, this actually looks really bad, but we're gonna have to suffer through it for the video. Sorry. So why is it that I'm so invested in this Canon EOS R5C? Because that's what this is. It's a cinema camera from Canon. That's what the C stands for. And it costs a mere $3,500 for just the goddamn body. Not even this bottom part, which holds 2 batteries, instead of just the camera holding 1. And this lens, which I think costed about 600 bucks. So yeah, just the body itself. So I'm going to go over all of the controls of this camera, all the buttons and stuff, and, you know, what's on it, all the flips and flaps and stuff. And then we'll actually get into, you know, the video quality, how you operate the camera, and why I even got to this really expensive camera in the first place when I could have bought much, you know, cheaper and better devices for doing what I do. There's definitely many reasons why I picked this and why I landed on this specific camera, and we'll go over that. But first, the controls. So, this is how you hold the camera, with one finger on the shutter button, which is actually red now. It's red because, well, it's a cinema camera, I guess, so it's basically the record button. And on top of where the shutter button is, you can see this button right here, which is the manual function button, which when you press it, it actually cycles through, in software, different manual controls. So you can adjust your ISO, you can switch over to the ISO with that, and once you're there, selecting it with the button, you can then, you know, scroll with this to adjust the ISO back and forth while you're shooting, which is one of the reasons why I picked this camera. Another are all of the, you know, other controls and stuff. So you have the custom buttons here. These do different things on the camera normally, like that they're set up for, but some of them don't even do anything when you first get your camera. You have to set it up to do these things. And that's what I've done. This one is set to take a still picture. That's a custom button that I set to that in the software. This is one that I think I have to turn on and off auto white balance, so it just toggles Kelvin on and off, so I can adjust the white balance with this. And then this one, which is number 9, can't remember what that is. Yeah, I can't remember what that is, but it's another custom button you can set up to do basically whatever you want. There's another one on the front of the camera, as you can see right here. That is number 12, right there. Yeah, right there. And there's a lot more stuff on here. There's the hot shoe right here, which you can stick different accessories, like a flash unit, which, you know, also has a torch on it, or a microphone, which is actually how I'm recording the audio for this video through this Canon R5 Mark II. It has a microphone attachment on the hot shoe, or cold shoe, whatever the hell this is called. And yeah, that's for attachments and stuff. Over here we have a little LCD, I think that's an LCD, which tells you like different information about what's going on with the camera. So if I turn it on really quick, you can see it starts showing stuff, you know, that little screen right there. So it shows, you know, your Kelvin, your white balance, your f-stops, your ISO, your actually that might not be f-stop, I don't know. I'm kind of new to this. And if it's recording or on standby, and of course the little battery indicator there too. Over here we have a little mode dial. Not sure what I've used that for, but I can tell you that I have actually used that somewhere. And we have the mode button. Now this actually replaces the little mode dial you see on most point and shoot cameras, this little thing right here. And it's now a push button. And it's also a custom button for the video mode if you wanted that. So in picture mode, this opens a little menu that you can switch between different picture modes. Scene Intelligent Auto and FV, AV, all the priority options and manual stuff, and even custom modes as well. But since this is a custom button, I actually have this in the video mode set up to enable and disable auto ISO, so I can use this to navigate to the ISO setting and switch this, because you can't do it when it's in auto mode. So I have to have buttons to enable and disable all the auto modes that I can, in order to be able to change them on the fly, which is, you know, how I shoot videos now. That may not be the correct way to do it, but it works for me, and it works perfectly fine, and I have no problems doing it. It's much better than doing whatever this is doing, which is dookie water. And I actually have this set up for manual exposure as well, so it's not doing a great job exposing for my face. Not sure what's going on with that. Probably has something to do with my lighting, but let's move on here. So very quickly on the front here, you'll see some kind of a black thing right here. I have no idea what that is. Don't even ask. Now on the other side, past the screen, past the cold shoe or hot shoe or whatever, we come to this, which is the switch that you turn on and off the camera with, which the dial actually has 3 options. There's photo and video, and then off. Off is in the middle, photos on the left, and videos on the right. And we'll come back to that, because that brings up another point that's really interesting. So next we have this symbol, which I'm not sure what that's for. We have a tally light, so that shows when it's recording. And then we have this, which is a little speaker hole. Because yeah, this thing has a speaker, because it's video centric, and well, every camera should have a speaker if it shoots video. Duh. And then we're going to kind of wrap around and we'll talk about the connections here. This is a little time code thing, which you might not even be able to see very well, but you know, I'm actually going to change lenses. Okay, so we're going to kind of wrap around over here, around the camera, so that we can talk about the little connections and stuff. And the first thing on this side is actually the little time code thing, as you can see right there. This little time code thing, which you can barely see because I have this camera in manual focus, but this is actually a little time code thing, which I think you connect a coax cable to, and that goes out to your, you know, timing circuitry or your timing box or whatever. It goes back to your video equipment to, you know, sync the audio and video together in post-processing. That's a good way to do that automatically, I believe. Next on this is the USB and HDMI connections, which I actually have to get a tool to get open. If I use this weird-ass shaped plastic thing. Hey, that worked. So under this little flap, we find, which doesn't come off by the way, we find the little USB-C port, which we'll talk about later, and this HDMI port, which I believe is HDMI 2.0, because it can do 4K 60 out. And yeah, it's micro HDMI, which sucks turbo ass, especially because this is a video-centric camera, and that's one of the very few misses on this camera. Yeah, I don't know why they did that. On the R5 Mark II here, they actually do have a full-size HDMI port, so I don't know what they were playing at with the R5C. No idea. Close that up. Alright, next, because it's easy to talk about, we'll talk about the little flash symbol here, which exposes under this flap, which is really hard to show, is this little port right here, which I believe you connect some kind of power connector that actually goes to probably something like this, a little flash unit that goes on the hot shoe. Through the hot shoe, the camera tells the flash when to flash, and for how long, I guess, and this supplies the power from the camera's battery, or batteries. So that's probably what that's for. I don't use it. Next over here, we have the headphone and microphone jacks, which this is the headphone one, and this is the microphone one. This is so you can connect some kind of lavalier microphone, I guess, to your camera, so you can record the audio internally in the camera, but still have external audio, because that's useful at times, especially given one of the characteristics of this camera and many other cameras that we'll talk about shortly. The headphone output is great for you know, connecting headphones or a headset or some kind of audio device for you to listen and basically gauge what the camera is picking up, either from the microphone here or the microphone that you add on here, or the internal microphone on this camera. So that's useful for, you know, monitoring your audio. And next we actually have something quite peculiar for many of you, I guess, which is a cooling vent, because yes, this camera is not very efficient, so it generates a lot of heat, and if it didn't have this cooling vent and the fan that you could probably not even see in there, not having that would be kind of catastrophic. And we'll, again, talk about that later. We're going to kind of ignore everything down here, because this is actually a different part of the video. So moving around to the front of the camera, we have the giant-ass lens, which is a 24 to 240 Canon lens. I needed a zoom capability that was basically like having a camcorder, so that's what I got. It's only 10x, which is not very good, but it's good enough for most cases. Definitely not as good as an actual camcorder though. But that's separate to the camera, so let's get back to the camera. On the front we have the EOS C label, as you can see. There's a red C there. Actually, the C is in silver, but it's in a red background. That's pretty cool. And right below that, we have the release for the lens, which you can take off like that. And the lens appears to have some kind of a curtain. And this is the EOS RF lens interface that also fits RFS lenses. This is just normal RF lens though. Below that release thing, you have this little flap underneath, which I believe is XLR, either input or output. I have no idea. I don't even know why this camera has XLR, but that appears to be mini XLR, if I am correct. So yeah, that's a bit weird, but cool, I guess. I never use that. I don't even have an adapter for it. And on the other side of this camera, on this side, we have a microphone hole. You notice there's not one on both sides, there's only one on this side. That'll come up in a minute. And we have this, which I think is a red eye corrector or something, some kind of metering device. That's pretty much everything on the front of the camera. Okay, now for the other side of the camera. Over here we have the release for the memory card door, or actually the card door for multiple memory cards and multiple types actually. The card that's missing right now is the Compact Flash Express Type B slot. I don't know if Type A cards work in there, but I haven't tested. I only have a Type B. The other card slot, however, is the SD card slot, which this is a 256 gigabyte SanDisk Extreme. And one interesting tidbit about this camera is you actually can't get the photos off of this camera by just plugging in USB to your computer. Canon does claim there is a way to do that, and in fact, Mac's Photos app will recognize this camera and try to pull photos from it, but it doesn't work. Don't even try. So that's the the memory card door. And again, everything below this, everything in this unit right here is not the camera, and we'll be talking about that much later. Also, we have a strap here, but we're not done talking about the whole camera. So let's focus on the back of the camera, the part you will be looking at if you're the one recording a video. And don't have the camera pointed at yourself like I have here. So here we have the giant screen. It's not really that big, but it is upgraded from the Canon R6 and below cameras, so that's pretty handy. This is, I believe, a 4 megapixel screen versus 2 on the R6. The viewfinder is also upgraded, which is actually an OLED. For some reason, the screen is actually less resolution than the viewfinder. I actually never use the viewfinder. I always use the screen. I wish they'd upgrade the screen more than the goddamn viewfinder, but maybe that's just not economical or useful to most people. But I never use the viewfinder. However, the viewfinder does have an auto detect, to turn off the screen, and then it activates the viewfinder. But the viewfinder is, I believe, 9 megapixels, which is a big upgrade from the Canon R6 and below as well. So that's cool. They upgraded both at the same time. I believe the viewfinder also has some kind of a contrast dial or something, maybe a focus dial for the screen itself. Not sure why anyone would mess with that, but maybe it has a use. Maybe it's just for calibrating, who knows, but if that's the case, why would it need to be here and not like inside and calibrated at the factory? That doesn't make much sense to me, but hey, it's there. Now on this side of the camera, on the front, or on the back, we have the menu button, which is useful for, getting to the goddamn menus and going back in the menus. And another custom button, which is a rate button, but it's also a microphone start recording button, as in you can actually record little clips of audio to go with your photos and videos, which I think is actually a pretty neat idea. I don't know how many people actually use that, but if my grandmother had used that, and actually if she had been alive to take pictures in this modern day and age, she would probably use the hell out of that and not say hell in the process because she hated swearing. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It also has some other use that it says there, but I'm not sure what that is. Maybe that's macro. Who knows? But it's also custom button 13. Now coming on the other side of the screen here, we have a air intake. As you can see, it actually says air intake there. And well, that's kind of weird because this just kind of has a fan bolted to it. You can see how it like bulges out compared to the R6, which I'm not going to pick up right now, doesn't have this hump here. That's because this has a fan internally, and I guess they wanted to reuse most of the design from other cameras that they had, so they just wanted to do minimal redesigning. So they just punked a freaking fan on it and say, screw it, we'll just make the camera bigger out this way instead of actually engineering their product. A bit weird, but it has a freaking fan, and that comes with a big plus, which we'll also talk about. Again, ignore everything down here for the third time. So from bottom to top, we have the delete key, which is also a cancel button, apparently. We have the media key, which is how you like play your recorded videos. It just brings up the playback menu for when you want to view your pictures in photo mode, or when you want to view your videos in video mode. Here we have a dial for, you know, changing settings and navigating in the menus. We have a set button for, you know, selecting in menus. We have a Q menu, which I'm not actually sure what that's particularly for. I think that's like what the set button would do on like a different Canon camera, like a Canon SX720 or something, or SX720HS. That camera, if you press the set button, it brings up like a little quick menu where you can change a few settings. I think that's what the Q menu is supposed to replace in this. Most of the cameras have it, actually. Even my Panasonic Lumix has that, which isn't even a Canon camera, obviously. This is the third programmable button, but it's also the info key, which allows you to bring up info or take away info, and even get a clean feed if you're doing HDMI capture. If you know what that is, that's cool. If you don't, I'm not going to explain it. This is the magnification key, which is also custom button number 2. Not sure what that does, never really used it. And above that, we have a little nub, which I think they added around the Canon EOS R10. On every camera above that has had one of these little finger nubs. And this is for navigating menus and selecting and stuff. I always found it super awkward. I wish they just made this dial a D-pad like it is on the pretty much every other camera I've ever seen, apart from these and the Canon EOS R50 and probably R100. You know, this is actually a D-pad, but this isn't a D-pad here. It's really weird, and I'm not sure why they did that. I liked having the D-pad there. But anyway, right beside that little nubbin thing is the AF on key, which is actually the first programmable button on this camera, which if you press, it will kind of focus, it'll force the camera to focus if you have it set to do that. I don't. I actually have it set to enable and disable AF lock. And right beside those, on the kind of grip part here, we have Auto Iris, which I've never used that, but that's programmable button 5, and programmable button 6 is right next to it, which is the actual AF lock button, but I changed that apparently. So that's all the controls on the actual camera itself. We're again not going to talk about the stuff on the bottom. We're just actually going to take that off completely. So on the bottom of the camera we have a little screw hole for a tripod mount, and we also have the battery door, which is right now missing because this thing has to fit in there. And that's actually an intended behavior. You can take the door off to put a little grip on, which is what I've done. And that's why there's no cover on here. But this has the battery compartment for batteries like these ones. And we also have a little connector here, which is actually for these grips as well. You can see the little mating key on that right there. It connects to the thing there. I thought that was like a mini HDMI, but no, it's slightly different, slightly thicker, and it's definitely meant for these. Okay, before we talk about the software and, go into why I picked this camera in the first place, I want to talk about the battery situation a little bit more, and a little bit more in depth. So, this camera takes batteries that started with, I believe, the R7, which, this is that. This is a Canon, it actually doesn't say on the battery pack itself what it is, but let's just say it's the 16 watt-hour Canon camera battery for the Canon R series. But one weird thing is this is actually the low trim version. There's a high trim version, which has more silk screening on it, which actually says what it is instead of this garbage. This is a Canon LP E6P battery pack, which actually has the exact same capacity. It's, 2130 milliamp hours, and so is this one. But apparently, this one lasts for about twice as long as, this one in the Canon R5C. And I'm not really sure why that is. Like, I guess if you can do more with it and use less power, that's fantastic. So, we got a bunch of these. We had a bunch of these, but we got a bunch of these as well, specifically for the 5C. And I'm not sure why, but maybe this can just output different voltages that work better and work more efficiently with this camera as opposed to this one. I guess this one's just more advanced. But yeah, so that's the weird battery situation. But another battery thing, this R5C, for all of its positives, its battery life is kind of horrendous. In fact, this battery only lasts 30 minutes inside this camera, and all of the third-party ones do as well. But the 6P here actually lasts like about twice as long, as I said, about 50 minutes instead of like 25 minutes. And yeah, 30 minutes. That's pretty dreadful. And speaking of the battery situation, why do I have so many batteries? And they only last 30 minutes. Why would I even tolerate that? Well, basically because this thing, which kind of looks like a dock, this is that grip I was talking about, and this actually allows you to use 2 batteries at once. And you just kind of have to screw it in here. You just have to screw it down, keep force on it as it goes down, which is really not a great process. I don't like putting this on, but whatever. There you go. And it's now on, and the camera can be turned on now. And this is actually an off-brand one of these. Where's my tool? There it is. Gotta get this back. And because of that, the design of this one is kind of crap, so you can't actually... Way to make me look like a fool. Every other time I've tried to you know, flip this lever up to get the damn batteries out, the damn thing has been stuck and it just wouldn't let me do it. I had to go get some tool to get the damn thing to flip out. Really annoying, but anyway. In here we have grand total of 2 batteries in this little sled here. And these have little levers to flip the batteries out and put them in and stuff. It's really annoying, but it allows me to use 2 batteries at once. Just like that. And this also has more controls on it than just the camera has. So you can actually use the camera like this. But the shutter's over here, so what did they do? Well, they actually put another shutter button here. Isn't that weird? And you can turn all these like buttons and stuff on from the grip by you just turning on the switch here. And that just powers up all the, you know, controls and stuff, which is a bit weird. I'm not sure why it needs that, but whatever. So you can actually shoot some weird, like, YouTube shorts with this thing, which is kind of odd, but okay. This also has a little loop for the band, which instead of attaching it to the top of the camera here, you can actually attach it to the little loop down here and actually use the camera just like this if you always used it like that, which is awesome. And you can even carry it like that with the strap. Not sure who would do that, but if you shoot YouTube shorts a lot, that's all you do, that makes sense. This grip is pretty much a TikToker's dream, I guess. There's also another manual function button, basically all the controls that you would normally have, you know, AF on, you would normally have, you know, on the top of the camera, you know, if you're just using it normally. You can use it like this. There's even a little thumb wheel thingy, which is definitely less nice than the Canon one, but the Canon one was never too great to begin with, so whatever. There's also the screw lugger right here. And there's also a charge indicator for each of the batteries that are in here. Now more about the power situation. As I said before, this camera can use all these batteries, both types of these batteries and even some third-party batteries. But a problem is, what if you want to use the camera for longer than that and, well, you don't, you know, have a bunch of batteries just laying around to do that with? Well, you can, in fact, plug USB-C power into this, but it's very particular about what it wants for that. In fact, you have to get a minimum $300 power adapter that just plugs in through USB-C into this camera that runs it. I'm not kidding, it really costs $300 for that official Canon product. And as far as I know, no other USB power supply, even power delivery ones from like Ugreen and stuff, can be used with this camera. So I'm not sure why Canon did this, but it's asinine and I hate them for it. And that's one of the other misses on this camera. So before we get into the software, let's talk about microphone. Let's talk about microphone. Now, whatever. Let's talk about microphones. So, as we saw earlier, there's only one microphone hole. Why is that? There isn't one on the other side. But if we look at the Canon R6 Mark II here, see a microphone hole here, and a microphone hole right here. Now, why does the R5C not have both of those holes? Well, it's because it actually does have both those holes, and one of them is located behind the screen hump, right here. And yeah, that's a pretty bad location for it, unless you're doing, you know, the voice thing, where you record like a memo of your picture or whatever, telling whoever's listening what it is, where you took it, where you want to put it, whatever. You can do that on this camera, which is cool, but that replaces having a stereo microphone, which is also not great. And you might have noticed this doesn't have a flash, which means you can't take flash pictures and have a stereo microphone at the same time on this video-centric camera. which is really dumb. They should have a flash and they should have a stereo microphone on every single camera. I'm not sure why they didn't, but this has been a giant headache for me because I've needed to take flash photos and, good, video with decent sounding audio at the same time for YouTube purposes. Carrying around a huge flash unit and a big microphone add-on on my person and a giant camera is a pain in the ass, and no one should have to do it. So yeah, they should have put a stereo microphone in this at the bare minimum, and to be honest, they should have put a flash on this because even the freaking Canon R10 has a goddamn flash. And it actually has a stereo microphone as well, although I'm not sure where the other... Oh no, there's the microphones right there. Stereo microphone. Canon R10. Even the freaking R50 has both of those things, and the fact that this R5C doesn't, really stupid. So yeah, I've had to carry both this huge-ass flash unit and that huge-ass microphone unit on my person whenever I go out, and that's a huge pain. But enough negativity, let's talk about the software. There's some surprises here. So, the software. What makes it so special? Well, that's because this camera, it's dual booted. And no, I'm not joking. This actually has two basically completely different firmwares inside one. In fact, the photo mode is completely different than the video mode. They have completely different interfaces, and in fact, when you switch the camera mode from photo to video, it shuts off the camera first, even if it's never on the off position, pauses for a few seconds, and then boots up into the other. So this is actually running two operating systems, just not at the same time. And that's pretty weird for a camera, but I guess if it gets me extra video stuff and keeps the photo mode, that's pretty awesome. So let's turn the damn thing on. So I didn't spend a lot of time in the photo mode, but let's turn it on, and it turns on, and there's the photo mode. Basically it looks like any other Canon EOS camera, for the most part. And to be honest, not really much to look at. I'm actually in the manual exposure mode because I take manual exposure photos. I also take RAWs and JPEGs at the same time. And we can take a photo, and it'll look like what it looks like. Basically, it'll look like what it is on the screen, which for some reason Nikons don't do that, but Canons do. So this screen is a pretty accurate representation of what you're going to get in the output of the file, which is nice to know. Also, if you move your eye up close to the viewfinder, you'll get a different viewfinder view, which also happens if you, actually accidentally move your finger close to it. I think I can even do this. Yep, and there you go. You can see what it's seeing. And I can take a picture, and yeah, pretty weird, but cool. But what is kind of awkward is you can't actually record video in this mode. There's no record button on the camera. This might look like a record button, but it's not. It doesn't do that. You cannot record video in photo mode at all, which means you can't take a few photos and then take a video like a second after that. You just can't do it. What you have to do is switch it into the video mode, which we'll talk about now. Shuts off and then boots into a completely different mode. Look at all that stuff. Yeah, this is pretty weird, and you can actually hear the fan. And I'll talk about the fan in a minute, but first I have to talk about, what it's like in this video mode. First, I'll switch back to photo mode for a second so I can show you the menu options. If you press the menu button up here, the menu looks like this. Not really gonna be able to see it, but it looks, just like any menu. This is a touch screen. You can touch on things. This is what the menu looks like. But let me switch over to video mode, and I'll show you its menu system. Press the menu button, and this menu interface is completely different. There's still some similarities like this, and this, and this, I think. But everything, and this. But everything else is pretty much different, and there's a lot more options. Here's where you can actually go in and customize the customizable buttons up here and around here, which is pretty cool, which I've done. You can also have a focus guide, turn the LCD brightness up and down, have a 1 kilohertz tone at different decibel levels. There's a lot of stuff in here, and you can even set the sensor mode from full frame to cropped, because this is a full frame camera. And right now I have a full frame lens on here, but the lens I actually have on this camera that I'm recording with right now is actually a APS-C lens, which you actually need a Super 35 crop mode for to work with this camera, or else it'll have horrible vignetting and some weird box effects when you zoom in. But yeah, this camera can shoot in 4K 60, which is why I bought it, but it can also shoot in 8K 60 as well, but only in RAW. But it can shoot 8K 30 at 400 megabits in H.265 mode or HEVC mode. It can't do it in H.264 mode, which, yeah, that would be pretty huge. And it can do YCC 422 10-bit HEVC 8K, which is pretty good. Although it does that at 540 versus 400 megabits. But it can also do AAC, 2-channel, or LPCM, 4-channel. So that's basically WAV format, so just PCM, so like CD quality audio. What this means, the different channels, 2-channel versus 4-channel. What does that mean? Well, it means that one is going to be a cake in the walk to edit and upload to YouTube, or just upload to YouTube. You could just do that with it. But with the 4-channel one, it's more involved than that. You have to go into your video editor and specifically tell it that the first 2 channels, if you're recording with a stereo microphone, that the first 2 channels are stereo, and to throw away the other channels, or else it will only import 4 different mono channels, 4 different mono tracks into your video editor. And it does that when uploading to YouTube as well. If you upload a video in this mode, upload it to YouTube, it will only have 1 channel of the audio. And if you play it back with QuickTime Player on a Mac, it has the same effect. If you play it in any media player, it's going to do the same thing. It's only going to play either the right or the left channel. Sometimes you can pick which one, and you can also pick one of the empty other channels that are there, the other 2 channels, but you can't play the stereo audio back unless you record it in AAC mode, which is a pain in the ass. And that's another miss with this goddamn camera, is you can't record decent PCM audio without doing a bunch of screwery later on to make it actually watchable on a normal system. So if you want to watch it in PCM mode and you want to watch it back in stereo, you actually do have to watch it in your video editor, which is annoying and stupid, and they should fix that. If you want PCM 2-channel audio, PCM stereo, you should be able to do that, and I'm not sure why they didn't give you that option. But for now, all you can do is AAC, which I believe is 256 kilobits audio. I believe it's at 4800 kilohertz, but it might be at 44.1. Not totally sure. Haven't really checked. In here, you can also set the main recording destination. So which card do you want to record on, the SD card or CF Express? Well, for most of these modes, you actually do have to use CF Express, because as it says here, the SD card is not compatible with the current recording settings. So it can't go up to 225 megabits. Even though the card itself can do that, the card won't let you record. Actually, will it? No, I am recording to the card using that, so I'm not sure what it was talking about. I am recording using that, so the card is compatible. It's just full of shit. Unless it stops recording at some point randomly, which it probably will, knowing this camera, what it does when it says that. But in order to record 8K 60, you actually have to record in either HDMI RAW, so you have an external recorder doing the recording, or you record in RAW LT or RAW ST. And you can only... Wait. The lens does not work with the current recording settings and attached power source. Okay, so what that means is you basically have to use the power adapter if you want to record in 8K 60 using this lens. So that's a bit weird. Not sure why that's a thing, but you can record in 8K 30, just fine with it. RAW LT, I believe, is a higher bitrate than RAW ST, but there's 2 modes here. Oh no, RAW ST is only able to record in 8K 30 or 8K 24. All of these pretty much do 24 FPS. I'm not going to mention that because I don't care about it. LT can go all the way up to 60 FPS or 59.94p, whereas RAW ST cannot. It can only do 30 FPS. So that's weird. Oh, and HDMI RAW won't let you do anything above 30 FPS in 8K, which is weird. And it'll only let you do 8K. It won't let you pick anything else when you select HDMI RAW. I always try to record in either MP4, HEVC, YCC 420 10-bit, which means I'll be uploading like straight to YouTube or something, or XF AVC YCC 422 10-bit, which has just a larger bit rate, which that's only if I'm going to like do editing with it, not upload it to YouTube at all using that format, and I'll edit it first before doing that. And that's the only reason why I'd record in that. So that's usually what I record it in. But like I said, if I'm going to upload straight to YouTube right after I record the video, I'm going to pick YCC 420 10-bit HEVC. This can also do different recording modes, so you can record audio with it, with this microphone if you really want to. Slow and fast motion. You can do pre-recording, frame recording, interval recording. There's a bunch of different modes in here, none of which I've an experience with so far, so I'm not going to go into those. However, I'm going to talk about the microphone situation when it comes to video, internal to this camera. If you don't add a microphone onto this will record a mono audio, which means it'll only use one of those 2 channels if you're recording the AAC stereo option, or with a 4-channel PCM option, it'll only use one of the 4 channels. Actually, I think, now that I think about it, it might record stereo audio, but it doesn't have a stereo microphone, so it's not actually, both channels are exactly the same. They have the same information, the same sound, so there's no difference between the two. So it might as well just be mono audio. I guess that's just for, like, convenience when editing. I think that's how it works though. It might not though. That might only be, you know, the R5 Mark II though. Okay, so let's talk about why I picked this camera in the first place. So it's basically for the fan, but we'll get there eventually. But first, I want to talk to you about the other cameras in the Canon R line and camcorders. Why did I immediately jump to this, you know, $4,000 piece of kit? Well, I didn't. In fact, I had many other cameras before I had that one. And they included this Sony Handycam, which is a 4K camcorder that came out in 2023, or something like that. Takes okay 4K video. It's not better than an iPhone, so it's a pretty craptastic camcorder, but it cost $1,000. So, yeah, that's a lot of money. And before this, we actually had these Canon EOS R cameras. This is a Canon EOS R50, which can record in 4K, and its quality is a little bit better than this camcorder, but had stupid lens issues, and of course you had to, you know, put other lenses in it, and it was just a pain in the ass. And it overheated. That's one thing about pretty much all of these EOS R cameras, even the insanely expensive EOS R5 Mark II that I'm recording with, they will all overheat if you look at them funny. If you record for more than an hour at 4K with the EOS R10, it will overheat. And this is a $800 camera body, not including the lens. If you record 4K or even 1080p on this Canon EOS R50 for more than about 30 minutes, it'll overheat. The Canon R8 will overheat in about 20 minutes at 4K 60. And again, I only want to do 4K 60. And my goddamn phone, my 5-year-old phone, can do that. So if these cameras can't do it, they're useless to me. And let me just say, it's kind of insulting that Canon is releasing brand new cameras that have silicon in them from 2018, from 6 years ago. And the only reason it can is because they're pushing the limits of it. And when you do that with old silicon, it just gets way too hot. And that's why all these cameras overheat, because they're being pushed to limits that they should not be pushed to. And even the $3,000 R6 Mark II will overheat at 4K 60 after about, you know, 40 minutes. So that's useless. But that might be a good point to most people. Why am I even bothering with normal, you know, point and shoot cameras or digital SLRs or mirrorless cameras, like, at all? Why am I even bothering when, you know, camcorders exist? Well, camcorders are extremely expensive, and they're not actually very good for what you pay. In fact, this one shoots worse quality video than my phone, and it won't even do 4K 60. At least it doesn't overheat, and it has a decent zoom range, and it has a decent microphone. But that doesn't really make up for the fact that it can't do 4K 60. And to get a camcorder that can do 4K 60, you can't do anything, because they don't exist. At least not anymore. They used to. In fact, we got a Canon GX10, which hasn't been updated since 2017. So it creates video that's a little bit better than this, but it's about on par with this and most, you know, iPhone footage. But at least it can do 4K 60, it's easy to use, and it doesn't overheat. Even with its 2 insane Digic DV6 processors, yeah, it has 2 of those that it uses to do 4K 60, it still doesn't overheat. Well, why? Because it has a fan. And that gave me a bright idea. So when the R6 Mark II was being shipped to us, I could see the writing on the wall with these other cameras that overheated and the R8 that we also tested, and I had a bright idea. Why not just get a Canon EOS R camera that has a fan? So that's exactly what we did, because we even tried to add a fan onto the R8, and it only gave us 3 minutes of additional recording time in 4K 60, so it bumped us to about 23 minutes instead of 20. But that thing was only a Peltier element anyway. Those aren't very good to begin with. That was a miserable solution anyway, so we got rid of that snap quick, and instead picked up this EOS R5C, which I had heard some good things about, and it's a cinema camera, so it has to be good because professionals are going to use it to make movies and stuff. So it has to be decent, and it also has to be able to record for a long enough time. So it needs a goddamn fan, just like all of these cameras need a fan. Even this R5 Mark II has a fan added to it because Canon recognized that this was a problem they created for themselves. And instead of updating their silicon for whatever reason, they released a battery grip similar to this one, except not off-brand, and it actually has a fan in it. And that's why this camera is actually still rolling after this much time. It's because mid-roll, I actually went and got the battery grip from upstairs, brought it down here, and added it onto this camera. And it's about halfway to overheating, so we're going to have to wrap up here. So I got this camera because it can shoot excellent 4K 60. If you want to talk about video quality, this thing kicks ass. It kicks all the asses of all of these hyper expensive ass cameras that overheat or just don't do 4K 60 for thousands of dollars, which to me is such a ripoff when my $1,000 phone could do that and more. You want to know why that is? That's because this phone is a 5nm processor, and these cameras, being from 2018, and cameras are, 24nm or somewhere around there. That's why they are so inefficient and why they all overheat, except for the ones where Canon was sensible and put fans in them. And that's why this is the best camera ever made, because it has a fan built in and it can do 4K 60 for an infinite amount of time, has a card slot that's awesome and takes Compact Flash Express and SD card slots and does 4K 60 onto the SD card or the Compact Flash slot, and this can even do 8K 60 if you really needed that and if you really wanted to, and I tested that and it does work and it is awesome. It's a little hard to work with, but it's awesome and I love it. And the fact that this is a dual-booted camera is absolutely mind-boggling to think about, like, why? But then when you get the camera and actually, find out all the quirks it has, it makes sense why they did that. And the fact that it can take all the lenses we already had is amazing. It can even take this crappy lens, this 18-45 APS-C lens, also known as RFS lens. The ones with S on the end, like the one that I'm shooting with right now, are APS-C lenses. And why is that important? Well, that's because these lenses, the APS-C lenses anyway, they actually can focus much closer than the full-frame just RF lenses. So that's why we have some APS-C lenses as well as some full-frame ones. You use them for different things. And so this is about the end of the road for my 4K 60 journey. And I just wanted to take you with me and tell you how awesome the Canon EOS R5C is. It's amazing. It's insanely great. It is the single best camera I've ever used in my entire life, and I doubt that will ever change unless they make one of these with a stereo microphone and a flash like they should have in the first place. Battery life is understandable, fan was needed, so it's a goddamn good thing that it's here, because it isn't anywhere else. And this shoots phenomenal video. If you know how to use the camera and you know all its ins and outs, this shoots excellent video and even shoots excellent photos. Like the detail you can capture with an 8K sensor with photos, if you know how to use it, is incredible. And when you leverage the raw stuff, mind-blowing. I took a picture of my girlfriend with this camera, and you can tell she was laughing super hard, but you can also tell how insanely breathtaking she is, because this camera just brings out every goddamn detail, and I love it. I love this camera. It is the single best camera I've ever used, and I love it. That's my story with the Canon EOS R5C. I'll see you all on the next live stream short or video, whatever that may be. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your evening. See ya.